Legacy characters. Some of them have been with us for decades at a time. Others are more recent, like Miles Morales. I'm not against the concept of legacy heroes in general. In fact, I enjoy Kamala Khan far more than I did Carol Danvers. The problem with legacy heroes is that it's the nature of comics and less about the heroes. Comic books are stories that do not end, and the heroes will almost never retire. Sometimes legacy characters will outshine their predecessors. More people know about Jaime Reyes compared to the likes of Dan Garrett or Ted Kord. However, even being more iconic doesn't stop you from the madness of legacy character behind the scenes politics. Let's start with Wally West. Barry Allen was dead since Crisis on Infinite Earths. That was the mid 80s. He wouldn't be brought back until the mid 2000s with Final Crisis. I bring this up because a famous legacy character doesn't save the character from idiotic legacy induced politics. This goes further back. The Flash of Two Worlds existed because fans of Jay Garrick questioned what happened to Jay and why is this Barry Allen guy calling himself the Flash and running around. While this did introduce the concept of the multiverse to DC Comics, it also introduced a problem. At first, it wasn't a problem, but it only grew into a problem in the hands of later writers. Let's see the Marvel end of things. In the 2010s, Marvel had the explosion of legacy characters. Some became iconic, such as Miss Marvel. Others were far more controversial. I'm going to use Riri Williams as an example. I'm not going to mince words. Riri had a crappy first run by Bendis that had pacing that was somehow worse than normal Bendis decompression. I am so glad that the champions and later writers such as Eve Ewing fixed this mess. The fundamental problem of legacy heroes is that while the cast of characters may be as large as you could make it be, the printer is not as large, and the paper is not unlimited. Like a star, the cast is going to collapse in on itself one way or another. There's many ways legacy character implosion can happen. You can go the Wally West route of nobody having an actual clue on how to write him and editorials sucking all the fun out of the character and the universe in order to justify whatever nonsense they're pulling because honestly they have no idea what his role in the universe should be and are basically making it up as they write it. Then you have characters that easily fade into the background because the cast has been so inflated to the point that we're unable to actually do anything with these characters because the focus would have to be split in all sorts of directions. You can also have the John Kent route, where the writers basically wrote themselves into a corner with the character after taking away, well, basically everything about him. Ahem, an actual supporting cast that I enjoy. No wonder I hate Teenage John so much. Ripping out this friendship and then replacing it with bleh, not great. Or you can go a Spider-Man route. Wait. Hold on a sec, you might say. Spider-Man isn't a legacy character. How is he affected by a legacy implosion when his whole claim to fame is that he was a teenage superhero, but he wasn't a sidekick, he was his own independent hero? Want a teenage Spider-Man balancing being a student and being Spider-Man, for example? Read Miles Morales. Want to read someone having the worst luck and getting kicked in the teeth while having lighthearted adventures? Read Spider-Boy. Okay, you can see the problem here. When you make a legacy character that takes an aspect of the original character's whole spiel, then you better be quick to replace it. You can see my problem with legacy characters right here. You can pick your poison all you want. Either the cast gets so inflated that the focus cannot be pulled in all directions, and thus some legacy characters will end up in the background, and thus any fans they make will either forget about them, or if they're diehard enough, will eventually end up running the asylum, or just being very angry and seething. Or you can have the Spider-Man problem. Despite not having a ton of legacy characters in the same given universe, you run into the issue of taking an aspect of that character's quirk and reworking it into another character. This can be fine so long as something fills that void. Or else you're left with two characters occupying the same niche or a shallower version of the character who once was. This has been my problem with Spider-Man for a while. Basically, all these characters of the extended Spider family have taken a bit of the original Spider-Man, and it's only exacerbated the issues that he's experienced. Mainly Marvel wanting to keep him in this very narrow idea of what is Spider-Man. Or you can get an issue with multiple generations of fans competing for the mantle. In the case of Geoff Johns, he started out being a fan of the comics and then started writing them. And basically, he got to turn his fanfics into reality. The likes of Geoff Johns and Jim Shooter are the reason why I don't denigrate fanfic as an inferior version of the original, because sometimes those fanfic writers grow up and they write for these franchises, and it's no longer fanfic. It has the rubber stamp of officiality. But that aside, there's a few ways to solve this legacy character issue. One of the ways that I found could be effective is that if these comic book companies took a risk and said, we're going to move everything forward and leave the past in the past and the future in the future. And the future is now. Which was going to happen with DC's G5 initiative. The problem is that it suffered from a lot of poor planning from what I've seen, and from what I've seen, it really wasn't a popular idea at DC to begin with, because of course you're going to have to produce results when you do this gamble. Not to mention, some of the setup is iffy, such as how Jace Fox was sort of there. Don't know whether that's a side effect of him being scrapped with the whole G5 initiative and that they were trying to rework it, or if that's just how Jace Fox was going to be. But either way, legacy characters have a lot of issues to them, and there's a lot of ways they can implode, and with the current status quo, I don't see them doing anything but eventually imploding, either collapsing into the background, or just making fans incredibly angry because these characters were mismanaged. Those are just my thoughts on the matter. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.